So let's work with an example. Let's imagine you received the framework of belonging as part of your crafting text studies in school. Um, you understand the theme, you understand what to expect from it, to belong versus to not belong, people being excluded or accepted. You have a good idea about it. You've read a book that maybe was about belonging as well, and you've analyzed and looked at how that idea was relayed there. Now you come to school and you're told that you're looking at a mentor text today that is that you may use to inspire your own crafting text stack, and is going to be a short story. So in preparation, you think you might even use short stories for this stack, so that's great. But you also want to be prepared to closely analyze it. So you first review the features of a short story so that you're prepared and you know what to look out for. So what do you need to know about this text type? It's got the least structure. It's one of the easiest and most common choices made by students, really easy to write in, heaps of flexibility. You will need a few characters, a balance between dialogue and descriptions, and some thought to how the plot is going to develop to keep it engaging. But advantages of it, you've got lots of flexibility. You don't have a set structure that you have to apply. There's lots of text available that you could be using as inspiration. It's really easy to put a framework into a short story to make it the center of the whole short story. Um, Also, pretty easy to incorporate language devices like imagery, metaphors, similes, and to fulfill the word count for a school-based assessment if there is one. Now, I would say these are commonly how short stories are, but this doesn't apply to all of them at all. But they usually have a single plot from one person's perspective rather than multiple, and this is how they usually flow. The one that we are about to analyze now has all of these elements as well. Most short stories start with an exposition, which is description given to the reader in the beginning to give them information. It might be about the character's life, or it might be setting and similar. Then throughout the story, there's sort of rising action. Tension increases slowly. So you're trying to increase tension and thus the reader's interest by creating engaging dialogue, by creating engaging descriptions, but dialogue will be the main plot driver in most of these. Um, and then there's some sort of climax, the peak moment of tension, when the tension is highest. The thing that happens in the short story that is uh, the peak of that tension, usually to do with whatever conflict there is. And eventually, the tension subsides and is decreased, and we have a resolution of some sort. Short stories center around a theme usually. So if you have to base it around an overarching idea, this is exactly what your framework's role is going to be. Oftentimes in a short story, that would be presented as the challenge or the struggle that the main character is trying to overcome. Now, there's usually some kind of conflict. The framework can focus around that as well. Can be to do with anything in the personal life or a physical challenge to the main character. Um, it's description focused, and the descriptions and dialogue drive plot development and need to be well balanced. Characterization is crucial. Leave lots of things implied, okay? Don't make things too obvious, but make sure the reader gets a certain flavor of who the main character is and how they are, their personality. It should be a lot of that should be implicit. First person point of view is personally recommended by myself. if writing your piece in a short story format, because if you want to incorporate a framework and really relay it through your piece, it will be easier to do if you can describe what the character is thinking, feeling, than if you go for a third person perspective and it's less personal. Okay, so now let's imagine we're reviewing our mentor text, a short story, and we're looking for how the framework of belonging has been represented. All right, so the story starts with a bit of a hook rather than going straight to the exposition to try to spark readers' engagement. Yes, she said, it's incredible. And then we have an exposition. It was quite stupid of people, she thought, to make everything, even conversation, so interrelated and dependent that she could not say merely that it was incredible, but must be referring to something preceding or obvious. Nothing exists, she thought, unless it depends upon something previous. People are incapable of realizing anything that does not bear upon that interrelation. In this case, it was the number of warm days that was incredible, warm days being a factor in anyone's understanding, instead of anything more important, and there seemed to be so few important things, she thought desperately, besides the weather. So this exposition is all about the internal world of this character, our unnamed protagonist, and as we'll see later, I like it though, said her mother. The person she's talking to is her mother. Okay? So through the lens of the framework of belonging, we can already identify that this character feels like she doesn't belong. She deliberately excludes herself because she thinks that people around her, including her own mother, are interested in things that are plain and boring and that people are shallow. Okay? She's talking about the weather instead of anything more important, and there seem to be so few important things. Um, Humans are too simple and they can't think for themselves because nothing exists unless it depends upon something previous. If it doesn't affect me, I don't care mentality. That's what she's talking about. That's how she views the world and other people. So we see someone who deliberately doesn't feel belonging with other people. And that's our protagonist. There, her mother liked it in the pattern which existed around and in and was part of her mother. There was a place for liking the weather. Look, said her mother, she's there again. So we see dialogue is driving the plot progression. We've been introduced to another character. Not only the mother was introduced by dialogue, but we're seeing someone else now. She's there again. I thought she had moved. And a good thing too, said her mother. No better than she should be. Decent people expected to live with a woman like that. More than a person should be expected to put up with. I suggested to the landlord that he put her out. Again, it was the concreteness of the act of forcing a woman out of a house that was important. It was the fact of mentioning it to the landlord that was important. So we see belonging is explored more. Now we see a character that is being deliberately excluded. It's not revealed to us as to why. It's kind of implied that there's something wrong with this woman. She stands out somehow. But the mother says that she can't stand living in the same building with her, and she's even talking to the landlord about it. And there's that difference in the views and values between the mother and the daughter. The daughter believes this is unfair and cruel and it's not right. And she's aware that this neighbor is being deliberately excluded for some kind of personal factors, thereby lacking belonging. You could look, I guess you could apply a framework of prejudice to this text as well, and look at it through that lens. We see the climax occurring through the dialogue, the mother getting angry. It is quite a low tension climax because this is a very short story. Queer, said her mother, queer to refuse to live in the same house with that woman, and now she comes and stands on the corner. On the corner. The corner was important, more important than the woman. The woman derived her actuality from the place where she lived, her landlord, the people she lived with, the corner she stood on. There was no woman, there was a corner, and a corner was no place for a woman to stand, any more than a decent house was any place for her to live. So it's quite sarcastic um, in commenting that on that belonging that she's been deliberately excluded to the point that the corner of the street is even viewed as being too good for her, and she's undeserving of even that corner. We see the nearing of the resolution where the conflict subsides. The mother kind of backs off. Don't blame the poor creature you don't really know, and anyway, she's to be forgiven. The woman then existed to be forgiven, not blamed, not understood, forgiven. So no one's trying to understand her. And we see the final resolution down at the bottom. So this is how you may take a mentor text and break it up. Okay, and then let's say it's your turn to craft your own text. You studied a variety of mentor texts and you like this text. Maybe you liked the idea of this protagonist that chooses to be different. She chooses not to belong with these judgmental people. Maybe you want to take that and make that how you incorporate the framework. Maybe you like this style of contemplation, of this internal monologue. Maybe you like the sarcasm and the implicit way some of these sentences have been phrased to relay that internal monologue, her true feelings of the protagonist. And those could just be the things that you take to base your own crafting text stack around. So this is exactly what you'll be doing throughout the year.